The contract's shadow. The crystalline spires of Meridian Station caught the light of 3 distant suns, casting prismatic shadows across Kira Valish's face as she studied the contract details scrolling across her neural display. Her silver-scaled skin absorbed and refracted the light, a natural camouflage adaptation of her Selenian heritage that made her perfect for wet work. The contract was unprecedented. 15 million universal credits, enough to buy a small moon in the outer rings. The target: Admiral Marcus Chen, the rapidly rising leader of the reformed Solar Alliance. Interesting timing, Kira murmured, her multifaceted eyes scanning the station's crowded thoroughfare. In the past 3 standard years, Chen had done what many thought impossible. He'd begun reuniting the scattered remnants of humanity under a single banner. Not through conquest, like the warlords of the past century, but through a combination of diplomatic genius and carefully applied military pressure. The human species had fractured after their first great expansion into the stars. The collapse of their original empire had left hundreds of independent colonies, corporate territories, and militant factions. For 3 centuries, they'd fought among themselves while other species gradually claimed the choice systems around them. But now, something was changing. Kira accessed the secure comm channel. Verify contract authenticity, Syndicate Protocol 7. The response was immediate. Contract verified. Client: anonymous through triple blind. Payment held in quantum-locked escrow. Timeline: 30 standard days. She allowed herself a small smile. The Nebula Syndicate never handled amateur contracts, but this was several levels above their usual fare. Someone was very worried about the unification movement Chen was building. Accept contract, she subvocalized. Initial parameters: acknowledge. The crowded station corridor suddenly felt colder as her professional instincts took over. Time to begin the hunt. First step: understanding her prey. The reformed Solar Alliance headquarters sprawled across Luna's Sea of Tranquility, a complex of gleaming domes and subsurface facilities that served as humanity's new center of power. Kira's infiltration began not there, but in the cramped quarters of a mining outpost on Mars' southern ice cap. Papers, the bored-looking human security officer said, barely glancing at her credentials. Kira handed over the immaculate forgeries. She wore the form of Dr. Sarah Chen, a distant cousin of the Admiral, geneticist specializing in adaptation protocols for long-term space habitation. The real Dr. Chen was currently enjoying an all-expenses-paid sabbatical on a pleasure world in the Centauri system, courtesy of an anonymous academic grant. Purpose of visit? The officer asked. Research consultation regarding the Olympus project, Kira replied with just the right amount of academic enthusiasm. The Admiral's initiative to improve human adaptation to low-gravity environments is fascinating from a genetic perspective. The officer nodded, stamping her documents. The Olympus project was one of Chen's more public initiatives, scientific rather than military, focused on improving humanity's ability to thrive in deep space. Just one of many programs that made him increasingly popular among the scattered human colonies. As Kira made her way through the mining outpost corridors, she reflected on the intelligence she'd gathered. Chen had emerged from the Sol Systems merchant fleet, a commodore who'd transformed a defensive patrol squadron into the core of what would become the Alliance Navy. But unlike the warlords who'd carved up human space, he'd focused on protection rather than conquest. Pirates who'd preyed on independent colonies found their bases exposed and destroyed. Corporate exploitation of frontier worlds stopped when Alliance cruisers appeared in orbit. Gradually, systems began requesting Alliance membership, drawn by the promise of security and prosperity. That was the public story. Kira's sources painted a more complex picture. She reached her assigned quarters and activated a suite of sophisticated scanning devices, checking for surveillance. The room was clean. She began unpacking equipment, disguised as standard medical research gear, including a quantum-encrypted communicator. Initial insertion successful, she reported. Beginning Phase 2. The response came in text only. New intelligence. Priority update. Stand by for download. Kira's neural implants processed the incoming data. Her multifaceted eyes widened slightly as she absorbed the implications. Shen wasn't just unifying human space. He was systematically dismantling power structures that had profited from humanity's division for centuries. Corporate cartels, criminal syndicates, even some of the more aggressive non-human powers had seen their influence erode wherever the alliance expanded. Someone among those threatened interests had hired her. But the contract's anonymity through triple-blind protocols suggested something bigger. The pieces didn't quite fit. A gentle chime interrupted her thoughts, a reminder of her scheduled meeting with the outpost's research director in 30 minutes. Time to play her role. As she prepared, Kira reflected on the stories she'd heard about Chen. They said he had an uncanny ability to predict his opponent's moves, that he could see patterns others missed. Some whispered that he had help from advanced AI systems, banned since the Empire's collapse. Others claimed he was secretly backed by one of the elder races that lurked in the galactic core. Kira didn't believe in myths. In her experience, the most dangerous opponents were simply humans who'd transcended the normal limitations of their species through will and intelligence. Those were the ones you had to watch most carefully. She made her way to the research director's office, every sense alert despite her casual demeanor. The Sol system was humanity's cradle, and despite centuries of division, it remained the heart of their civilization. Security here would be subtle but comprehensive. The director, Dr. Hammond, greeted her warmly. "Dr. Chen, we're honored to have you here. The Admiral speaks highly of your work." Kira smiled, noting the casual mention of Chen. "The honor is mine. The Olympus Project's preliminary results are unprecedented." "Yes, well." Hammond lowered his voice. "There have been some interesting developments. Off the record, of course." She leaned forward slightly, playing to his ego. "Oh, the genetic markers we're seeing in the test subjects, they're unlike anything in our database. It's as if..." He hesitated, as if someone had already optimized the human genome for space adaptation long ago. "We're not creating something new. We're rediscovering something that was lost." Kira filed that information away. Another piece that didn't quite fit the puzzle. "Fascinating. When did you first notice this pattern?" The conversation continued, Hammond gradually revealing more than he probably should. Kira appeared to take notes on her datapad, but she was actually mapping the facility's security patterns, staff rotations, and communication protocols. Each piece of information was another tool for her eventual mission. But as she gathered intelligence, a nagging doubt grew stronger. The original Empire's fall had left humanity fragmented, fighting over the scraps of their former glory. Now Chen was rebuilding something new, something that might let humanity reclaim its place among the stars, and she was being paid to stop it. For the first time in her career, Kira wondered if she was on the wrong side of history. She pushed the thought aside. Professional assassins didn't indulge in philosophy. She had a contract to fulfill, and 30 days to get close enough to Admiral Chen to complete it. As the Mars base's artificial night cycle began, Kira sent another encrypted update to her handlers. But she kept one detail to herself: the genetic discoveries Hammond had mentioned. Something told her that information might be valuable leverage later. She stood at her quarters viewport, watching the red desert beyond the base's protective domes. Humanity's first step into space lay below her, and their greatest achievement, the Lunar Alliance headquarters, hung in the sky above Mars. Somewhere up there, Admiral Chen was building humanity's future. In 30 days, she was supposed to end that future. But first, she had to understand it. The hunt was just beginning. Masks within masks. The shuttle's approach to Luna gave Kira a perfect view of the Alliance headquarters complex. 3 weeks of careful groundwork on Mars had earned her a research delegation spot, complete with high-level clearance. Now the real work would begin. The domes of the Alliance complex weren't just architectural statements. They were technological marvels. Each one housed its own ecosystem, a perfect blend of Earth-normal conditions and advanced security systems. Kira's neural implants detected layers of scanning technology that would have given even the most advanced infiltration systems trouble. Fortunately, she wasn't using technology to hide. She was hiding in plain sight. "Dr. Chen, your presentation materials have been approved," the shuttle's AI announced. "Admiral Chen has requested your presence at the evening briefing." Kira kept her expression professionally pleased, though her heart rate quickened slightly. This was moving faster than expected. "Wonderful. Please confirm my attendance." The shuttle docked with whisper-quiet precision. As Kira gathered her belongings, she observed her fellow passengers, a mix of scientists, diplomatic staff, and military personnel. The Alliance was a hybrid organization, neither purely military nor civilian, another departure from traditional human power structures. A young lieutenant met her at the arrival bay. "Dr. Chen, I'm Lieutenant Sarah Wells. The Admiral asked me to be your liaison during your stay." Kira shook the offered hand, her synthetic skin perfectly mimicking human warmth. "Very kind of him. I wasn't expecting such a personal welcome." "The Admiral takes a special interest in the Olympus project," Wells said as they walked. "He'll be attending your primary briefing personally." They passed through multiple security checkpoints, each more sophisticated than the last. Kira's forged credentials held perfectly, but she noticed something odd. The scanning patterns weren't just checking for weapons or explosives. They seemed to be building a comprehensive biological and psychological profile of everyone who passed through. The lieutenant led her to her assigned quarters in the diplomatic wing. "The briefing is in 3 hours. Would you like a tour of the facilities before then?" "That would be wonderful," Kira replied, already mapping potential escape routes and security blind spots. The tour revealed both more and less than she expected. The visible security was impressive, but not impenetrable. It was what she couldn't see that worried her. Certain corridors had subtle energy signatures her implants couldn't identify. Some doors seemed to open before Wells reached them, as if the building itself was anticipating their movements. "And this is the main research complex," Wells said, gesturing to a massive circular structure. "All Olympus project work is coordinated from here." Kira paused, studying the building. "Interesting architecture. Almost reminds me of ancient Earth designs." "The Admiral believes in learning from history," Wells replied with a slight smile. "Even the parts most people have forgotten." Before Kira could probe that cryptic statement, her neural implants detected an incoming priority message, heavily encrypted. She maintained her conversational demeanor while processing it. The message was brief. "Contract parameters updated. Timeline accelerated. Complete within 48 hours." Kira felt a chill that had nothing to do with the climate-controlled air. Accelerated timelines usually meant something had spooked the client. But what? The answer came during the evening briefing. Admiral Marcus Chen was not what she expected. The images she'd studied showed a tall, imposing figure in a formal Alliance uniform. The man who entered the briefing room wore simple civilian clothes and moved with the casual grace of a dancer or a martial artist. His eyes were his most striking feature, dark and intense, seeming to look through rather than at people. "Dr. Chen," he said, greeting her warmly. "Your work on adaptive genetics has been fascinating, particularly your theories about dormant genetic potential in the human genome." Kira felt a moment of panic. Those were the real Dr. Chen's theories, published in obscure academic journals. She'd studied them thoroughly, but, "Thank you, Admiral," she replied smoothly. "Though I admit, recent data from Mars suggests my initial hypotheses may have been too conservative." Chen's eyes lit up. "Exactly. We're not looking at future evolution. We're looking at capabilities that were engineered into our species long ago. The question is, by whom? And why were those capabilities suppressed?" The briefing that followed was ostensibly about the Olympus project, but Kira quickly realized it was about much more. Chen wasn't just trying to adapt humans to space. He was trying to unlock something buried in their genetic code. Something that might explain how humanity had spread so far. so fast during their first expansion. As other scientists and officials discussed technical details, Kira watched Chen. He moved around the room with perfect awareness of everyone's position, as if he could sense their presence even when his back was turned. Her assassin's instincts screamed that this was not normal human behavior. The briefing ended with Chen making an unexpected announcement. "In 2 days, we'll be hosting representatives from the Arcturus Confederation," he said. "They've expressed interest in joining the alliance. If successful, this will be our first major expansion beyond the traditional sphere of human space." The room erupted in excited murmurs. The Arcturus Confederation was one of the largest independent human factions, controlling dozens of resource-rich systems. Their joining the alliance would completely shift the balance of power in human space. Now Kira understood the accelerated timeline. Her client wanted Chen dead before that alliance could be formalized. She made her way back to her quarters, mind racing. The security would be even tighter during the diplomatic reception, but it would also mean more people moving through the complex, more chances for confusion and distraction. A perfect opportunity. Too perfect. Just like her initial infiltration had been too smooth, her access too convenient. A suspicion began to form in her mind. She activated her most secure scanning protocols and began a deep analysis of her quarters. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then she found it. A quantum resonance pattern so subtle it was almost undetectable. The entire room was being monitored on a level she'd never encountered before. They knew. The realization hit her just as her door chimed. "Dr. Chen, the Admiral has requested a private meeting, if you're available." It was Lieutenant Wells' voice, but something in the tone was different. Kira checked her weapons. All concealed, all still accessible. She could try to fight her way out, but in this complex, that would be suicide. "Of course," she replied. "One moment." She opened the door to find not just Wells, but 2 others, security personnel trying very hard to look like administrative staff. They weren't trying to hide their weapons. Wells smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. "The Admiral thought you might appreciate a more honest conversation." Kira understood. This wasn't an arrest. It was an invitation to stop playing games. As they walked through the complex, following a route she hadn't seen on the tour, Kira realized something else. She wasn't the first assassin to reach this point. The question was, what had happened to the others? She was about to find out. The room they led her to wasn't an office or a cell. It was a small garden dome, earth plants growing in lunar soil under artificial sunlight. Admiral Chen stood with his back to her, touching a leaf with almost reverent care. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said without turning. "Life, adapting to new conditions, finding ways to thrive. It's what we do best, as a species, when we're not busy trying to kill each other, that is." He turned, and Kira saw no pretense in his expression. No mask. That was more terrifying than any weapon. "So," he said, "shall we discuss who sent you, and why they're so afraid of humanity remembering what it once was?" And in that moment, Kira realized this wasn't going to be an assassination. It was going to be a revolution. "The enemy's table. Your genetic camouflage is remarkable," Admiral Chen said, gesturing for Kira to sit at a small table in the garden dome. "Almost perfect. But it has one flaw. It's too perfect. Human genetics are inherently messy. We have redundancies, variations, small imperfections. Your cover identity doesn't." Kira remained standing. "If you knew what I was, why let me get this close?" "Because I wanted to understand who sent you." Chen poured 2 cups of actual earth-grown tea. "More importantly, I wanted you to understand them." The garden dome's environment subtly shifted, humidity increasing to match Earth normal levels. Kira's enhanced senses detected changes in air composition, light spectrum, even the subtle electromagnetic fields that permeated the space. This wasn't just a garden, it was a testing chamber. "You've handled 7 assassination attempts in the past year," Kira said. It wasn't a question. Chen smiled. 8. Actually, The Protean Guild's attempt never made it into any reports. Please stit. The tea is quite real and quite safe. Kira sat, her training warring with her curiosity. The contract came through the Nebula Syndicate. Triple-blind protocols. Yes, but the Syndicate is just a conduit. Chen sipped his tea. The real question is, why would someone pay 15 million credits to stop a diplomatic meeting with the Arcturus Confederation? The obvious answer is power, Kira replied. The Confederation's resources would make the alliance too strong to oppose. The obvious answer is usually a mask for the real one. Chen set down his cup. Tell me, in your studies of my background, did you ever wonder why a merchant fleet commodore would have access to technology that even the old empire didn't possess? Kira's multifaceted eyes narrowed. The rumors about AI support are false. We don't use artificial intelligence. We use recovered human intelligence. Chen's eyes took on an intense gleam. Humanity's first expansion wasn't just faster than it should have been, it was more advanced. We didn't just reach the stars, we mastered them. And then, we forgot. A holographic display materialized above the table, showing star maps and genetic sequences. Kira recognized some of the genetic markers from the Olympus project data. This isn't natural genetic drift, Chen continued. These are engineered changes, designed to limit human potential, to make us less than what we were. The question is, who had the power to do this, and why? Kira's mind raced, connecting pieces she hadn't even realized were related. The contract's impossible deadline, the convenient opportunities, the way her clients seemed to know exactly when to accelerate the timeline. They're watching us right now, aren't they? She asked. Always. Chen's smile was grim. They've been watching humanity for centuries, subtly guiding our development, keeping us divided, competitive, focused on fighting each other instead of looking up and asking questions about our true history. The holographic display shifted, showing what looked like archaeological data. Ancient human settlements on worlds that, according to official histories, hadn't been reached until centuries later. The Arcturus Confederation found something in their deep space surveys, Chen said. Evidence of human presence in their systems predating the Empire by at least 1,000 years. They'd been sitting on this discovery, afraid to go public. But now they're ready to share it with the Alliance, Kira finished. And whoever altered humanity's past doesn't want that information revealed. Precisely. Chen stood, walking to a panel that overlooked the lunar surface. Your client isn't a rival power or a corporate interest. You're working for the same entities that have been manipulating human development since before the Empire's fall. They're called the Architects, though that's not their real name. No one knows their real name. Kira processed this, her assassin's training noting details even as her mind grappled with the implications. The Garden Dome's sophisticated systems, the genetic research, the way Chen had let her infiltrate his organization. You wanted them to send someone, she realized. You wanted proof that they're still active, still interfering. Yes, and I wanted something else. Chen turned back to her. I wanted one of their agents to see the truth, to understand what's really at stake. A new hologram appeared, this one showing a biological scan of Kira herself. Your Selenian genetics aren't natural evolution either. Your species was engineered, just like humanity was devolved. You're part of their system of control. The revelation hit Kira like a physical blow. Her entire species, created as tools for some ancient conspiracy. But even as she wanted to reject it, pieces fell into place. The perfect adaptations for assassination work. The way her people had always found roles in the shadows of power structures. Why tell me this? She asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. Because in 48 hours, representatives from the Arcturus Confederation will arrive with evidence that could shatter centuries of careful manipulation. The architects won't just try to stop it. They'll try to erase it, and everyone involved. Chen's expression was deadly serious. I need someone who can move in their world, who understands their methods. I need you to help me protect humanity's future by exposing its past. And if I refuse, then walk out that door. No one will stop you. Complete your contract if you can, but ask yourself, if they engineered your species for control, what else have they built into your genetics? What choices have been taken from you without your knowledge? Kira stood silently, centuries of racial memory and training warring with the evidence before her. The perfect opportunities that had seemed too perfect. The way her client had known exactly when to accelerate the timeline. The genetic markers that suggested manipulation on a scale she could barely comprehend. If I help you, she said finally, they'll send others. Better hidden, better equipped. They'll never stop. No, they won't. Chen smiled. That's counting on it. Because every agent they send is another opportunity to expose their existence. Every attempt to maintain control is another chance to prove they've been controlling us. He held out his hand. So, what do you say? Ready to hunt the hunters? Kira looked at the offered hand, then at the lunar landscape beyond the dome. Somewhere out there, her client was watching, waiting for her to complete her mission. But now she understood. She'd never been meant to succeed. She'd been meant to die here. Another loose end cleaned up in the architect's endless game of control. She took Chen's hand. Where do we start? With the truth, he replied. And in about 43 hours, with a trap they won't see coming until it's too late. As they began to plan, Kira felt something she hadn't experienced in years. The thrill of being the hunter rather than the tool. The architects had created her species to be perfect assassins, but they'd forgotten something crucial. The perfect hunter, once pointed at a target, never stops until that target is eliminated. They'd made her too well, and now their creation was about to turn against them. Shadows of war. The next 40 hours transformed the Alliance headquarters into a carefully choreographed battlefield. On the surface, preparations for the Arcturus delegation continued normally. Below that facade, Chen and Kira orchestrated an elaborate dance of deception and counter-deception. They'll have at least 3 layers of operatives, Kira explained, manipulating a holographic model of the complex. Long-term sleeper agents already in place, infiltrators arriving with the delegation, and a deadliest tier, cleaners like me, waiting to eliminate everyone if the other layers fail. Chen nodded, his eyes tracking potential vectors of attack. How many cleaners? Based on the contract value and timing. At least 5. Kira's multifaceted eyes shifted through spectrum ranges, analyzing security patterns. There'll be different species, different methods. The architects never rely on a single approach. They worked through the night, adjusting security protocols and positioning personnel. But their most important preparations remained invisible. A web of quantum sensors designed to detect the specific genetic markers Chen had identified as the architect's manipulation. Every modified species has a signature, Chen explained, showing Kira data streams from the sensors. Your Selenian genetics, the altered human genome, even the biological technology they use. It all carries their mark. We just had to learn to see it. Kira studied her own genetic readout, feeling a complex mix of anger and fascination. These patterns, they're not just modifications. They're programming. Yes, they wrote instructions into the very fabric of our beings. Chen's voice carried centuries of suppressed rage. Humanity's drive to compete and destroy. Your species' compulsion toward stealth and assassination. They built these traits into us at a molecular level. The first attack came 36 hours before the delegation's arrival. A power fluctuation in the environmental systems, subtle enough to seem like a routine malfunction, but designed to slowly affect the behavior of security personnel through carefully modulated atmospheric changes. Kira caught it only because she'd once used similar methods herself. They're more worried than we thought. They're starting early, trying to create chaos before the main event. Chen smiled grimly. Good. The more resources they commit, the harder it will be for them to hide their involvement. They countered the atmospheric attack, But it was just the beginning. Over the next day and a half, they detected and thwarted 17 separate infiltration attempts. Each one was masterfully planned, using technologies and methods that shouldn't have existed. "Look at this," Kira said, showing Chen scans from their latest capture. A seemingly human diplomatic aide whose cellular structure could phase shift to avoid detection. "This isn't just advanced technology. This is something else entirely." "The architects don't just control through genetics," Chen replied. "They seed technologies that keep us dependent on their systems. Every advancement they allow is designed to maintain their influence." 24 hours before the delegation's arrival, they captured one of the cleaners, a Mororian shapeshifter who'd nearly succeeded in replacing Lieutenant Wells. The interrogation revealed nothing. The operative's mind had been biochemically locked to prevent information extraction. But they didn't need the cleaner to talk. Its very existence was evidence of the architect's interference. "Each operative we capture is another piece of proof," Chen said. "Their desperation to stop us is becoming their undoing." 12 hours out, the attacks intensified. A quantum surge tried to disable their security systems. Biological weapons disguised as routine medical supplies were intercepted. 3 more cleaners were captured, each using technologies that defied current scientific understanding. Kira coordinated the defense from a secure command center. Her assassin's instincts now turned to protection. She noticed something in the pattern of attacks. They were becoming less subtle, more direct. "They're running out of options," she realized. "Whatever the Arcturus delegation found, it's important enough that they're willing to risk exposure to prevent its revelation." 6 hours before the delegation's arrival, they faced their greatest challenge. A ship appearing to be part of the Arcturus diplomatic fleet approached Luna. Scans showed it was genuine, but Kira's enhanced senses detected something wrong in its movement patterns. "That ship is dead," she said, studying the readings. "The crew, they're not alive anymore, but something's still flying it." Chen immediately ordered a quarantine protocol. When they boarded the vessel, they found a horror beyond imagination. The crew's bodies were still at their posts, animated by microscopic machines that had rewritten their neural pathways. "The ultimate expression of their control," Chen said, his voice tight with controlled fury. "Not just programming our genetics, but directly puppeting our bodies." The discovery galvanized their preparations for the real delegation's arrival. Kira reorganized their defenses, incorporating everything she'd learned about the architect's methods. Chen gathered their evidence, the captured operatives, the impossible technologies, the genetic data that proved systematic manipulation of multiple species. 3 hours out, Kira received a final message through her old syndicate channels. "Contract still active. New payment, 30 million credits. Deadline, immediate." She shared it with Chen. "They're getting desperate." "No," he corrected her. "They're trying to maintain the illusion of being just another shadowy client. But we've seen behind their mask now." The real Arcturus delegation was due to arrive in a fleet of 20 ships. As they made their final approach to Luna, Kira detected multiple suspicious energy signatures throughout the Alliance complex. "They're here," she said. "The last wave of cleaners. They're not even trying to hide anymore." Chen's eyes held a fierce light. "Good, because neither are we." They activated their trap, quantum fields that revealed the genetic modifications in every operative within the complex. Suddenly, the cleaners were exposed, their engineered nature visible to every security scanner in the facility. But the architects had one final move. As the delegation entered orbit, every communication system in the Alliance headquarters went dark. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, and the life support systems began to fail. "They're trying to kill everyone," Kira realized. "Eliminate all witnesses, destroy all evidence." Chen was already moving. "This is what we planned for. Initiate Protocol Omega." Throughout the complex, hidden systems came online. Technology recovered from ancient human sites, restored and repurposed. The architect's control began to fail as older, more powerful systems asserted themselves. They didn't just limit our genetics, Chen explained as they raced to the central control room. They buried our true technology, our real capabilities. But some of us remembered. Some of us kept searching. The next hour would determine not just their survival, but the future of human civilization. As emergency lights bathed the complex in red warning hues, Kira felt her engineered nature surge with predatory focus. The architects had created her to be the perfect hunter. Now they would face the consequences of their creation. Dawn of Unity. The central control room of Alliance headquarters had transformed into humanity's last stand. Emergency power cast everything in a dim blue glow as Chen and Kira worked to counter the architect's assault. Outside, the Arcturus delegation ships hung in lunar orbit, their crews witnessing a battle that would reshape galactic civilization. Secondary life support engaged. Kira reported, her enhanced senses monitoring multiple systems simultaneously. But they're trying to override at the quantum level. Let them, Chen said, his fingers dancing across ancient control interfaces. Every system they touch is feeding data back to the delegation's ships. Every attack is being documented, analyzed, and broadcast. The architect's desperation had forced them into the open, and now their actions were being recorded by hundreds of witnesses. But exposure wasn't enough. They had to survive to make use of it. A massive tremor shook the complex. Warning signals flashed across Kira's neural displays. They've breached the lower levels, she announced. Some kind of matter displacement technology. They're just erasing sections of the structure. Chen nodded grimly. They're not trying to hide anymore. This is what they really are. Beings who consider our laws of physics to be mere suggestions. Security feeds showed chaos throughout the facility. The remaining cleaner teams had abandoned subtlety, using impossible weapons that distorted space itself. Alliance security forces fought back with recovered ancient human technology, but they were badly outnumbered. We need to get the delegation's data secured, Kira said. None of this matters if their evidence doesn't survive. Already done. Chen gestured to a quantum-locked data core. But it's not just their evidence anymore. It's ours too. Everything we've learned about the architects, everything we've discovered about humanity's true past, it's all there. Another tremor, stronger this time. Structural integrity warnings flashed red across every display. They're going to bring down the whole complex, Kira realized. Bury everything under lunar regolith. No. Chen's voice held absolute certainty. They're going to try. He activated a final set of controls, and the room's walls became transparent, revealing a sight that stole Kira's breath. The lunar surface was changing. Ancient machinery, buried for millennia, was awakening. Massive structures emerged from the regolith, their purpose unclear, but their power undeniable. What we found in the Arcturus Confederation wasn't just evidence of early human settlement, Chen explained. It was a key to understanding what humanity really was, what we built before they made us forget. The emerging structures began to pulse with energy. Above them, space itself seemed to ripple. You planned this, Kira said, understanding finally dawning. You didn't just want to expose them. You wanted to force them to reveal their full power. Because that's the only way to prove what they really are. And what humanity really is, Chen agreed. Watch. The architects launched their final assault. Reality itself bent as their true weapons came into play. Ships appeared from nowhere, their geometries wrong in ways that hurt to look at. Energy beams that seemed to ignore the basic laws of physics lashed out at the complex. But the ancient human machinery responded. Fields of force that made the architect's technology look crude by comparison enveloped the complex. The attacking ships found themselves caught in webs of energy they couldn't comprehend. Humanity wasn't just another species that achieved spaceflight, Chen said softly. We were their equals, maybe their superiors. That's why they had to limit us, to make us forget. Not just our technology, but our very nature. Kira's tactical analysis confirmed what she was seeing. The architect's weapons, seemingly unstoppable moments ago, were being systematically neutralized by technology that predated human recorded history. "Send the signal," Chen ordered. Throughout human space, hidden transmitters activated. The truth began to spread, not just about the architect's manipulation, but about humanity's true heritage. The evidence was undeniable, broadcast on channels the architects couldn't block. The attacking ships began to retreat, not in fear, Kira realized, but in recognition that their long game was finally over. "They won't stop," she said. "They'll find new ways to control us." "No," Chen's smile was fierce. "Because we've changed the game. Humanity now knows what was taken from them. The Selenians know they were engineered for control. Every species the architects manipulated is about to learn the truth." The ancient machines continued to rise from Luna's surface, each one a testament to what humanity had once been. In orbit, the Arcturus delegation's ships were transmitting everything they witnessed to their home systems. "And now," Chen said, "we rebuild. Not their version of civilization, but ours. All of us together. Humans, Selenians, every species they try to control. We find out what we really are, without their limitations." The complex's systems stabilized as the architect's attack faded. Emergency teams began rescue operations. Throughout the facility, captured cleaner teams found themselves studied by scientists eager to understand the full scope of the architect's modifications. "What do we do now?" Kira asked, her assassin's training searching for the next threat, even as her mind grappled with her species' new reality. "Now," Chen looked out at the lunar surface, where humanity's true legacy was revealing itself. "Now we learn who we really are. All of us. And we make sure they can never make us forget again." In the days that followed, the galaxy changed. The evidence from the Arcturus Confederation, combined with the recorded battle at Luna, shattered centuries of careful manipulation. Species after species discovered the truth about their limitations, their engineered behaviors, their controlled development. The architects withdrew to their hidden places, but their power was broken. Their greatest weapons, secrecy and manipulation, had been turned against them. Kira found a new purpose. The skills the architects had engineered into her species became tools for protecting the truth, ensuring no one could ever again restrict humanity's potential. She worked with Chen to establish a new order, one built on unity and shared knowledge rather than competition and conflict. The alliance transformed into something new, not just a union of human worlds, but a coalition of all species the architects had tried to control. Together, they began to reclaim their lost heritage, their forgotten capabilities, their true nature, and in the depths of space, ancient human machines continued to awaken, each one a reminder of what they had been, and what they could be again. The long night of forgetting was over. The dawn of remembering had begun.